Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, October 7th. I'm Gary Stevens. It is the first Friday of the month, and so at this time we get caught up with things going on at the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. And on the other side of our Zoom connection this morning is its president, Mike Goorhouse. Mike, missed you last couple of months. I was out, and then you were out last month, but glad to be able to catch you back up with you again. Good morning.
Absolutely. Good morning, Gary.
Glad you are with us. If you have a question for Mike about the Community Foundation and what it does, he'll be happy to answer it at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Mike, let's go back for a moment, and then we will move forward. The celebration event happened since the last time we chatted, and it looked like it was a good time had by all. Tell us all about that and some of the honors that came as part of the event.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic event. We had close to 800 folks that were gathering, which is a wonderful show of community support for good things happening. So the whole point of the evening is to celebrate the giving spirit here in the Holland, Zeeland area, and just hold up the way that we care about each other. And so it is a fun evening. We were able to lift up 3 stories, which were really cool. So our theme this year was Give Where You Live, which is a perfect theme for a community foundation because we're all about giving and we're all about the Holland, Zeeland area. And so Give Where You Live was the theme. And so we celebrated a few different folks who really embody that. So the first was a family and a company, Zeeland Farm Services, and the Musin family. The Musin family owns that company. And both the family and the company are very generous givers. They're quiet givers. They don't like to bring a lot of attention to themselves, but very, very generous givers in our community. We were able to highlight some of the ways that they give back and the things that they care about. And so it was really fun to be able to hold them up and celebrate them. The second was a collective of women called Women of Color Give. And it's a collective of women of color who do giving together. And actually, we celebrated their work at our event. And they also had an event last night, which was just fantastic. They had north of 300 folks there, and they'll be giving away, I think I heard them say close to $60,000 or $65,000 that they pulled together. So they all pulled together, and then they do giving as a collective unit, and really fun to see that grow and just celebrate how they've created community amongst each other with some like-minded experiences and perspectives, but then also have chosen to give together, which is a really cool model for us all to think about. Oftentimes giving is very personal, but there's a lot of power in doing it with others too. And so we held that up and celebrated them. And the third story we celebrated was an individual who does not need introduction, but Frank Cry is a legacy member of our community who's been involved in many, many things. And he recently made a gift of a lifetime to help spur the building of an ice rink in downtown Holland, which was in process. And so we celebrated Frank and both his generous gift to the ice rink, but also his lifetime of giving in various ways with his time and talent and treasure. And that was a bit of a theme too. So we talked about what does philanthropy mean, and a lot of folks will define philanthropy using 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. But we spent some time talking about the need for all 3. And at different points in people's lives, they tend to lean into one or the other. But we pushed folks in the community that were attending to really find space to do all 3. And we have different levels of resources. We all have the same amount of finite time, although we have different obligations to use that time. And we all have different gifts. But for a community to function well, each of us can find just a little bit of time to give to others. We can use the gifts that we have to bless others. And then whatever we have financially, small, medium, large. And so we pushed people about a life of generosity. And so it was a wonderful evening. I think people were inspired by the stories that were shared. And I think they were compelled by the message and the invitation and the push to not just think about money, not just think about time, not just think about the gifts and talents that someone have, but really all 3. And how can each of us bring all 3 of those things to benefit our neighbors, our community members. And so, yeah, a lot of stories shared. It was a very inspirational night, and it was fun to be there. Actually, you can watch the video highlights from the evening on the Community Foundation website. So if you go to www.cfhz.org, as in Community Foundation HollandZeeland.org, there's the videos highlighting Zeeland Farm Services, Women of Color Give, and Frank Cry. There's a number of other things, and so folks that want to be inspired, they can go on there and check that out too.
During the time that you have been involved with the Community Foundation, and the Community Foundation certainly predates all of us, what they have done, but even over the years that you've been directly involved, Mike Goorhouse, maybe the celebration was also a case of stopping and looking and, wow, we've come this far and have overcome these many hurdles over the years. And again, your tenure as president is only a small slice of what the Community Foundation has done over the years.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. No, the Community Foundation has been around for 71 years. So we were incorporated in 1951. And so the foundation has been around working to benefit this community for multiple generations. And so it's a perfect time to pause and reflect on where we've been. It's also, it's interesting. You can do both, right? You can hold up the good work that has been done, and you can also name that there's so much more work to be done. And that's true. That's always going to be true. And that's not about being pessimistic or optimistic. It's just being honest, right? There are many people showing up day in and day out that are doing amazing work in this community, and you have to hold that up and lift that up. And there's a lot of things in this world that aren't the way they're supposed to be, and so there's a calling there to help neighbors, to help others, to just make sure that this community is a wonderful place for people to live and to play and to learn and grow and all those kinds of things. And so, it is. We at the foundation try to be someone who holds both of those spaces. I think some organizations can kind of go one way or the other. We try to be both. We want to lift up all the positive and the good and all the celebration. And we also want to name the hurt and the pain and the hard stuff. And we think the power is in both of those things being true, and then connecting people who want to give of their resources, of their time, to things, opportunities that matter. So it is. Yeah, you're right. The foundation has grown in its ability to impact the community, but it's about growing in our ability to connect people with opportunities to make a difference.
Opportunities and challenges, a couple of things that certainly will tie in with the next subject we'll bring up with Mike Goorhouse. But if you have a question for Mike, we can step aside and have you ask that question. He is the president of the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area. 616-395-1450 is our number, 616-395-1450. Opportunities and challenges. I think one of the ones that the foundation will be trying to address in the short term and also in the long term is dealing with affordable housing. There looks to be some developments along that line. Tell us all about it there, Mike.
Yeah, there are lots of developments, but what I wanted to do today, Gary, was actually just do a little bit of reflecting. You mentioned that word a second ago. The Community Foundation has been knee deep in conversations around affordable housing and work around affordable housing for the last 5 years. And we're at an inflection point where we're trying to figure out what does the next season look like for our efforts and the efforts of Housing Next, which we were a part of starting. So I actually want to do just a little reflection with listeners today about some of the things that we've learned. And this is a very, very important and very complicated, complex topic. And it's funny because it really shouldn't be that complex. At the end of the day, it is a lot about dollars and cents. It's how much does it cost to buy a home or to rent a place to stay? And how much resources do folks have, right? So it's a dollars and cents kind of question, but it also it has so many more pieces to it. So let me just give folks a couple thoughts on what I've learned around this topic. So one, in Ottawa County, in the decade census between 2010 and 2020, that data has now been live for almost a year. Ottawa County added 30,000 people to our population, one of the fastest growing counties in Michigan. By no means one of the fastest growing places in the country. Michigan actually is a fairly stagnant state during that time while other states were growing. But for our state, we were one of the fastest growing counties. So if we just even said that the average household was 3 people, which actually it's much less than that, but for the sake of easy math, That would mean that over that decade, we needed 10,000 new housing units, right? 30,000 new people. If there's three to a household, 10,000 more households. We did not build 10,000 new households between 2010 and 2020. So the economic side of why housing prices are going up is actually fairly simple, right? It's supply and demand. You have less supply and more demand. And our county continues to grow. Population continues to grow. And we've all seen the headlines. Our employers are being very, very successful. They're adding 200 new jobs, 300 new jobs, 1,200 new jobs, all these. So that takes people, right? So that means our population will continue to grow. So at its simplest, we need as many new housing units as we have people coming in. That's just to hold steady. Nonetheless, to make progress on affordability, which is going to involve more supply than demand. That's how we're going to drive prices to be more affordable. And so I just want to start with that. Like at the end of the day, we need to keep up with the number of people that are coming to our community in terms of new housing starts. And so people can kind of debate about housing and where it goes and what types and this and that, whatever. But at plain and simple, we need a large number of new housing units. So then the question is, where do those units go and what kind of units are they? Right. And then this is where you start to break off into different philosophies, right? Some people say, I only want a homeowner occupied because they have philosophies around that. Others say we need more rentals because it's more accessible to more people. Some say, these multifamily units is not a good plan. We don't like that much density. We only want single family homes. Some municipalities will say, you have to have a half-acre lot to build a home. Like these are all different rules and philosophies. And I'm not here to argue those today. What I am here to say is, at the end of the day, we need more housing units. So if you only have two options, you either put new housing units in places of our county that don't have housing units, meaning right now they are used for a different purpose. There's a grass field, a farm, a structure that was used for retail or something like that. You either convert spaces that aren't housing and you make them into housing, or you take places that have housing and you put a higher density of housing on those sites. Now, people hear the word density and they get all kinds of anxious because density can come in many forms. Density can be 3-story, high-rise, 40, 50, 60 units. Density can also be where there were 4 homes, there's now 6, or where there was 10, there's now 12. So density comes in a wide range of spaces. And so for me, when I think about those questions, the answer is, of course, both and. We are going to add new housing into places in our community that doesn't have housing, plain and simple. And I believe there are many opportunities for us to increase density where we have currently 8 homes that could be 10. That could be physical structures, or it could be taking a physical structure that's large enough to now be 2. Or when we're about to build on that corner, we could put 4 units instead of 1. If you just think about math, if every place that we build right now, we had 10% higher density than currently is used in that neighborhood or in that place, we could hit our unit requirement. 10%. So just think about your neighborhood. If your neighborhood's got 20 houses, try 22. If your neighborhood's got 50 houses, let's go 55. And so I think we can talk about this in ways that isn't super scary for people. But what it takes is everyone being willing to talk about this conversation. So let me then say one more thing, and because I could go on forever, and I probably would if I could. But one more thing that I think is important for people to wrestle with as they think about this. So when it comes to housing affordability, a lot of the conversation gets caught up in who is going to be in these new homes or these new places. And I think in my last 5 years, there are almost everyone I met and talked to has agreed that the ideal scenario is to have different socioeconomic status members of our community in mixed socioeconomic communities. So most people, if not everyone, thinks that it is not the best plan to have all the lowest income families in one place and all the middle income families in one place and all the higher income families in another place. The concentration of lower income families, while there's all kinds of studies in this about them, we need a community where folks are mixing and connecting. And so people agree with that on basis. So then my next question to them is, How do you create mixed income neighborhoods? Well, there's only a couple ways to do it. One, if there's no homes in that community right now, it's a giant piece of grass. You have to build mixed different types of housing in on that piece of grass to attract and be affordable and accessible to different income ranges of our community. So if you're starting with a blank slate, you have to do it from the beginning. If you aren't doing it from a blank slate, then you only have two other options. You take a community that right now is primarily housing lower income members of our community, and you add housing stock that is more middle income or higher income. Or you take a neighborhood in our community that's primarily middle income or higher income, and you add some more accessible, affordable units. Folks, those are our only three paths forward to get more mixed income communities. And so at the end of the day, we have to talk as a community, what path forward do we want to take? Again, I would argue we need to do all three. We need to, when we build on big grass, pieces of land, we need to be intentional about building different types of housing, accessible and available to different socioeconomic and income levels. We need to take communities that are primarily lower income communities and add some different types of housing into it to create more mixed income neighborhoods. We also need to introduce some more accessible and affordable options to traditionally middle class and upper class neighborhoods. So my point today, Gary, to listeners I'm not here trying to convince people what the strategy is. What I am trying to say is we need more housing units. That's plain and simple. The question is, how do we get there? And I would say it's a lot of both and. It is about developing places that don't have housing, and it's introducing more density into places that do have housing. And I would say we need more mixed income neighborhoods, which means we do that from the very beginning of developing these new pieces of grass. And we take existing communities and diversify them in terms of the housing typology and accessibility. So love to talk to anyone more about that. And there's different things that come with how to get there. But I hope people kind of just pause and think about, there's a lot of pointing when it comes to conversations around housing. And I think it's about pointing to ourselves. Everyone has a role. Every neighborhood has a role to play in this. And I think it's worth us going after, because it is a really important issue.
A couple minutes to go in this particular segment, Mike, and it's a good time as we are moving into the last quarter of 2022. People start thinking about giving. It's that time of the year. Also thinking about the bottom line, trying to maybe help themselves with the income tax return and the like. And certainly, the Community Foundation is a good place to give your money, and besides giving your time a little bit, but more about helping those in the neighborhood, in the community, through the work of the CFHC. How can people give?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. It is a lot of folks. A lot of giving happens at the end of the year, and so I hope folks start thinking about that now. The Community Foundation ourselves was certainly honored to receive gifts from folks that want to give back to our community. The way I describe it, when folks give to the Community Foundation, first off, there's a couple of different ways you can give, but to our general endowment, our community endowment, that is a gift that people give when they want to support a wide range of things happening in our community, from arts to housing to education, health, kind of a broad range of community issues. The Community Foundation is a great place to give. It's also a good place to give for someone who wants to ensure this community stays strong for the long term. So an endowment's going to be around for many years to come. So we're a good gift on that front. Certainly, we also run our Promise Scholarship, which is our community's scholarship to ensure access to post-secondary education for a number of students. So that's a really popular thing for people to give to as well. But in addition to that, we provide services to donors to help facilitate giving. And so if there's ways that we can help people think through their dollars, just give us a call.
By the way, for those who wish to help the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area, the website is cfhz.org, cfhz.org, and the phone number is 616-396-6590, 616-396-6590. Mike Goorhouse, president of the Community Foundation. As always, thank you very much for your time telling us what's going on with the foundation. Wish you and everybody over at the office well. I look forward to chatting with you again next month.
Thanks, Gary. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mike Goorhouse on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.